buy Gucci or Supreme or any of that stuff to be cool or fit in. Like, clothes don't determine who you are. Like, I'm not any cooler than anyone watching this because I spend a lot of money on clothes. That doesn't. No.
The fabrics and materials that lay upon our bodies and feet should not determine who we are as a person or our self-worth or social value. Fashion is a form of three-dimensional art, and just like any form of art, it takes artistic abilities. 3D pigment artist Joe Hill travels the world creating art that seems three-dimensional, and depending on the perspective that you look at it, and just like fashion is different for everybody, the beauty of an outfit is in the eye of the beholder. Good morning, I'm Edwin P, and fashion is one of the most common ways to show self-expression. People around the world have different views on price tags and name brands, and just because we don't have the most expensive, exclusive clothes does not mean one is not fashion forward. Fashion is a $1.2 trillion industry with more than $250 billion spent every year annually in the United States. As more money is being spent on the production of clothing, the prices of the garments increase exponentially. Ray Smith of the Wall Street Journal interviewed Zach Posen, a well-known fashion designer, and he stated, getting as many people to be viewing your work as possible, especially at this price point, can be a vital, potentially key part of growth. So due to the high prices, business isn't always as successful as you think. Some may care about fashion and what they wear, and some may not. People think the fashion industry is a career, and depending on what you wear could be the factor whether you get the job or not. So this organization, Dress for Success, is a nonprofit organization that helps disadvantaged individuals find jobs by providing professional attire and career development tools. Because as we know, if we come into an interview with dressed up clothes, you'll probably get a more chance of getting the job rather than someone who didn't come prepared. A statistic shows that children in the United States living with struggling families, there is actually 45% of children who are struggling at home with their families, while there's 50% who have healthy families. So that percentage is actually quite large. It's actually quite large, and some may care about fashion and what they wear, some may not. People think the fashion industry is a career, some people think it is just a hobby. It all depends on how people view fashion as a whole, and that correlates directly to how much people are willing to spend on their garments. What one wears is vital to a person's life because what one has can be the reason. One style causes a great first impression. It shows one's commitment and desire and present at any given location. Lisa Belkin, a writer from the New York Times, set out on a venture to understand the benefits of organizations. As for the future of fashion, nothing is guaranteed. It is a cliche to say that fashion is shifting. Fashion always shifts. The clothing industry is forever changing, meaning perspectives on fashions will vary when it comes to the future of social acceptance on the garments and individual wears. It will take efforts amongst the fashion industry and society to change biased views on the need for expensive clothing. A poll conducted by a male student from Florida who is interested in fashion asked the question, does a brand or price tag determine how trendy or cool you are? Two voted yes, while 65 voted no. There was a 92 to 8% ratio. People think that just because you have expensive clothes does not mean that you're fashion forward. It all depends on how you put the outfits together, not how much you spend on it. Solutions include sub-brands, uniforms, and slash prices. Sub-brands is a good solution because it creates mainline garments at a much significant lower cost, even though you're pretty much getting the same garment, just cheaper, and the quality is pretty similar. And with uniforms in schools, it creates everyone to be looking the same and decreases bullying. And with slash prices, designers can slash their prices. But with these solutions comes limitations. With sub-brands, just because the price is lower and it goes to a larger audience does not mean everyone can still afford it. With uniforms, not a lot of students can afford uniforms, and not a lot of adults can afford college shirts for their jobs. And slash prices, brands would lose a lot of equity and profit because of how much it actually costs them to make, like leather goods overseas. So once all that cost goes into play, it becomes detrimental to their brand. Here you can see the main line of Ralph Lauren and the sub-brand Polo by Ralph Lauren. The only difference is that the color of the logo on each logo, this is more detailed, whereas this is just a solid color. You're basically paying for the same thing, just the logo colors are different. The intention of these sub-brands was to have similar looks from the designer mainline, but for a fraction of the price. They almost look identical. Sub-brands may not fully solve the issue of social scrutiny over someone's attire, because understandably the presence of multiple tastes and style means that not everyone will be interested in the same garments. However, not only does the historical creating of sub-brands a lot more accessible and affordable, it gives more opportunities for people to express themselves through one sense of style. And to use myself as reference, I'm wearing one of the most expensive outfits I own, but that doesn't mean that I'm not fashion forward. Like I previously stated, the beauty of an outfit is in the eye of the beholder. Just because I come into a job interview just like this, I'll probably have a less chance of getting the job than somebody who is dressed in the tux, but that doesn't change the fact that what I'm saying isn't true, and that my resume is being more fit for the position. Just because I came into the presentation dressed like this shouldn't take away from the fact that what I'm saying is true and the credibility of it. The perception of what one wears will always be present, but should not determine someone's self-worth and social acceptance, as previously stated in my intro. It is time that the fashion industry becomes more considerate of those who cannot afford expensive garments. Sub-brands are a great first step towards a high-end look and feel without a high-end price tag. As time progresses, the fashion industry must begin to take steps toward aiming their products for audiences. Soon enough, every individual can feel high-end without spending a necessary amount of money. Fashions fade, style is eternal. Thank you. What questions do you have?
Thank you. Got two questions for you. How valid and reliable were the sources that you used, and then how do you know?
A lot of the sources that I used were pretty valid because they came from sources that I know aren't known for being biased. I got more of them coming from EBSCO rather than web pages because those are more opinionated.
All right, and how did you use your conclusion and question of others to advance your own research?
Can you restate that?
Yeah. How did you use the conclusion, I said it wrong. How did you use the conclusions of questions of other people to help you do research?
I wanted to use my conclusion to be my most powerful statement in the presentation. So, wait, restate it one more time.
How did you use the conclusions of other people to help
people.
you do research for this?
Conclusion of other people to help with my research?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, well, when I first started my research question, I was talking more social. So once I got the conclusion of them telling me to add more lens, to add more perspective to the perception of the fashion industry, I implemented that into the presentation.
All right, cool, thank you.